Yeah, um, I'm always thinking about the fact that the music that I grew up with was really not music that resonated with me much, except for like some classical music that my parents would play, and that's how I got into piano. I kind of my mom was playing just something on the radio that was just like classic piano, and I was like, oh, I want to play that.
Yeah.
And then that's how that started. But aside from that element, I didn't really find like cool bands, maybe not until college. And so when it was time, like in high school and college, there were some friends who were like hip to jazz, and I was really fascinated because I had been learning piano. I was really fascinated by these new sounds.
Yeah.
Like just like kind of like major seven more jazzy kinds of things, and people like reharmonizing things, and I really didn't know how that stuff worked, and so it was kind of out of curiosity.
Right.
So then in college I took like intro to jazz and started learning a little bit about it, and like just jamming with some people in school, and that's how it started.
Yeah.
And it's really like the love affair has grown since then.
Right.
Because at that time it was such a just from a purely kind of musical perspective, or maybe I'm curious about these sounds, I'm curious about like the possibilities and different players that I like, but then that introduction only goes so far. It's like then there's like the history of it and like the cultural significance of it, and that brings all this emotion and human element that's like that in jazz is huge. Like it's like you almost can't separate it, or at least I feel like the jazz that that means the most to me is like connected to the people. And I mean, I don't know, maybe you could say that about all music, but because I spend, like I've spent so much time thinking about this stuff, like I feel like, oh, these stories, this like the history and the culture, like that's it's so important that is spoken through this music, maybe in a way that's unique to
I think, especially with jazz, it's like such a hard thing to define, to really define, come up with a definition for it, that everyone sort of has their own idea of what it is. So
do you have a...
Well, yeah, for me, I'm very much, I agree with Miles Davis when he says it's not so much a body of work, but how you play something. Mm-hmm. So invention, as long as it comes from you. And yeah, there's more technical things, but to me, jazz is more a style of playing than a body of work. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So a lot of improvisation as well, a lot of invention on the moment, but also through compose can be definitely. Was it difficult for you to get into improvisation? That's kind of always a challenging thing for a lot of people.
I always liked the spirit of it a lot. There's a crazy like episode I had when I was in like fourth grade, living in Arizona, and I had never maybe I did random improvisations at home, and I was not at all like an extroverted kid.
Yeah.
Like I just kind of didn't really know how to express myself so well. But there was a moment when I kind of like boasted to the class, and this was a pure invention. I was like, did you know that chopsticks actually has like a second and third movement? Like there's all these other parts to chopsticks.
No, is there?
No, I mean, not as far as I know. I've never researched it, but I kind of just made up this thing.
Ah.
And then someone called me out on it. Like, what does it sound like?
That's amazing.
And then I like went to the piano that was in the classroom, which I wasn't in the habit of playing anyway, but it was there. And I like played chopsticks, and then I made up like these other movements to chopsticks.
Wow.
So there was something, I think that, I don't know, I was just drawn to boasting.
Yeah.
But like there was I have no idea, no recollection of like what I played.
Wow.
But there was moments like that. So there was stuff where I wanted to kind of branch out.
Yeah.
when it became more systematic later in school, I think it was challenging to make the leap from the academic kind of approach to how jazz is taught, to like having things really flow for myself, and then like, yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of like big steps that I had to go through. Like one was like how do I take the theory that I'm learning and make it into something that is like expression that's coming from me. And then there were like other improvisational like kind of things that I considered hurdles. Like there was a time I was like, how do I like have a great understanding of like vernacular, jazz vernacular, even if I'm not playing bebop lines all the time, like to know how people are creating them and speaking through them, and like with like a certain swing feel, because like different players have different swing feels, and like what is that? And coming from the classical world, like my swing feel was really like rudimentary for a long time when I was beginning, and it was like it doesn't sound quite right. So it took me a while, and like working with some mentors to like figure that out. And then now I can't play the way I used to. It's like impossible.
Really?
Do
you feel it's because you've evolved, or is it because you've purposefully driven yourself away from that moment in your musical development?
I think that when I first was trying to do it, it was really like a seeking. And it wasn't such a natural like speaking. And then when I learned how to speak, then there's kind of no way to go back to, it's like maybe like learning a language, like, once I know this language, like I can't like pretend not to know it. It's just, so it's tricky.
Exactly, yeah. Music is a language, right? But how do you connect with, when you were thinking of a way to like take the theory and make it your own in a way? How do you do that? Is that a spiritual thing, or is that something that you pull out of the air, or is it something that happens through practice, or a combination of everything?
Yeah, that's a big question, man. I mean, like how do we just discuss creation at all? I mean, we're expressing ourselves throughout our whole day. I mean, even being alone, not at an instrument or with a pen. Like we're expressing ourselves. I think, and you could see that as just living. You could see it as a creative thing, or you could see it as like essential, or like maybe you don't think about it as kind of just like going through your day. But I think of when it's through music, like coming to it the way I did, like I don't know, learning how to do it. I don't know, maybe I think of it like hitching a ride on a train or something. And as my life is going, I'm also learning how to improvise and be true to what I would like to say, or but when my abilities were less than they are now, I was still improvising, but then it was I don't know, it was maybe just in a different way, because I just had like a smaller tool set. And then when my skills will be even greater, hopefully it'll still continue to evolve.
It's like language, we learn different words and we learn how to use them. Sometimes it's actually learning a different language altogether, right?
Right.
Yes.